The last thing we need to do to our AI bots is to set them on patrol, running back and forth between their two note actors. So let's pop over here into Kismet, and here's our bot firing behavior. We're going to put the patrol behavior just above this. Now, this is going to be very similar to the firing behavior in that it's going to function based on a loop that is going to be powered by an int counter. So similar, in fact, that we can grab several of these factors, several of these actions, and just copy them all. So I want you to grab the int counter, the -1 plugged into it, the total bots. Let's grab the bots list, the accessed object list. Let's grab our little reset system down here with the set int and the -1 plugged into it. And let's hit Control-C, we'll move up here and hit Control-V. Now we'll move this up a little bit, and then anything that's reaching too far away will just break off for the time being. Okay, so we've got the exact same thing taking place. We're cycling through our number of bots, and each time we cycle, we are talking to a specific bot in our object list. If we get too high, we're going to wrap back around and start technically at 0, even though this says -1, because the first thing this is going to do is increment -1 to 0. Now I'm going to do something kind of interesting, and it won't really be understood exactly why I'm doing it until we get a little bit further into our sequence. Here we've got our output, which is restarting our loop after resetting our value back to -1. I'm going to disconnect this and take our activate delay and set it to 0. Now I'm going to right click, create a new action, and bring in a math divide int. So I'm going to show you what this node is going to do, and then we'll talk about the specific function it performs just a little bit later. So let's set up the variables for this. We'll start off with a new variable to plug into A, and we'll set its default value to 2. Now for B, we're going to do the exact same thing. Right click, create a new int variable, and we're also going to set its default variable to 2 as well. Now we're going to take our int result and plug that back into our second variable. Now think about this. This is a node that's going to be called in a loop when all is said and done. The very first time it's called, it's going to say, all right, 2 divided by 2, and that equals 1. And then it's going to plug 1 into this value. The next time it gets called, we're going to take 2 divided by 1, and the result, of course, is 2, and plug that back into this variable. This means that as we continue to call this divide int over and over, our results are going to be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's going to be useful later. You'll see why. I just want you to know what this divide int is doing, and then we're going to plug it in and use it as a way to help our bots decide which of its two locations it needs to travel to, either its origin or its destination. All right, now, from here, we're going to take the output of our divide int. We'll wrap that back around. We don't really have to have a delay here. I mean, it's okay to have, but we can do without it. Now, next to this, we've got our access object list. We're talking to a specific bot. We need to output the bot to whom we're talking. So let's right-click on our output object, create a new object variable, and we're going to be moving our bots using the move sequence we put together. If you remember way over here, we've got a remote event called moveBot, which is grabbing a moveBot sequence that we assembled, and this sequence requires a specific bot, and it requires a destination. Now let me move back over because it jumped us actually to the destination. So there you go. It requires a bot and a destination. So what we're going to do is set the bot variable to the guy that we just output from the list. So let's right-click, go to New Action, Set Variable, choose Object, plug this in. The value will be whoever just came out of the list. The target is going to be a named variable reaching over to the bot variable. Not bots plural, but bot singular. We'll plug that in like so. Okay, now with that set, the next thing we need to do is set up our switch that will control which location our bot is running to. Is it running to its destination, or is it running to its origin? Because remember, we stored those in two separate lists. So I'm going to leave a gap here. We'll talk about that gap here in just a few moments, but let's right-click, go to New Action, create a switch, and just a basic switch. With the switch selected, I'm going to set the link count up to 2. Now, For the first link, for link 1, we're going to run to the origin. For link 2, we're going to run to the destination. But let's go ahead and get the first link set up first. So we'll right-click, go to New Action, Object List, Access Object List. Link 1 will plug into @index. Now, as soon as we do that, we need to establish the index that we're speaking to this time around. And we're going to take our index and connect that all the way back to our counting number way back at the beginning of our end counter. It's a long way away, but it'll be important that we connect to that. All right, now we need to associate this with the proper object list, which in this case is going to be origins. If you mess this up and put this as destinations, it's not going to be the end of the world. You just might notice a brief delay before your robots start patrolling. So let's right-click, create a new named variable, which will reach over to the origins, plural, list, and we'll plug that object list in like so. Okay, now what are we going to do with what we pulled out of the list? Well, we're going to store it into an object variable. And then we're going to set another object variable. We're going to set that variable to our destination. Because remember, over here when we move, we need a bot. We already have that. Now we need a destination. So we need to set this destination variable. So let's right-click, go to New Action, Set Variable, Object, take the output, plug it into the in. Our target is going to be a named variable, reaching over to destination singular. We'll plug that into target. Then our value will be whatever we pulled out of the list. Easy enough. Now that we've got this, we have all the information we need in order to use our move bot remote event. We have a destination, and we have a particular bot to whom we're talking. So let's right-click, go to New Action, and go down to Event, and choose Activate Remote Event. For the event name, we're going to use move bot, which we set up earlier. You can see the little green checkbox. So output from our set object into the Activate Remote Event. Now, continuing from here, we're going to put in a brief delay, but actually let me take care of that in just a moment. What we're going to do is go ahead and set up link 2, and I'll show you how easy this is. We can grab our access object list, the list plugged into it, the object variable, destination, and object. Just hit Control-C, Control-V. Now we can take link 2, plug this into @index, and it's as easy as taking our list and saying, I want you to pay attention to the destinations list instead. And there we go. Now let's set up a delay. So New Action, come down to Miscellaneous, and set up a delay. The reason we're not just going with a regular activate delay is that I'd like to use a little bit of a random factor. So let's right-click, create a new variable, and this is going to be a float variable, and we'll choose a random float. We're going to set the min to 0.5 and the max to 1.25. Now what this means is we're going to have a delay of some random value between these two numbers before the bot turns around and goes to its original patrolling position. So let's take our finished and we'll wrap this all the way back around to our input on the end counter, creating our loop. However, we still have a gap, so this won't work. Not yet. What do we fill with this gap? What we're going to do is use a set int in order to control which switch we should be listening to. Remember we set up this divide earlier, and the output of this divide will always be counting 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The links on our switch need to do the same thing. They need to be set to one of these values all the way down until all the bots have responded. And then the next time we loop around, we need to set it to 2 and set all of that for all of the bots as well. So what I'm going to do is create a new action, set variable, and we'll set this to set int, take the output, plug into the in, take the out, plug into the in, so this connects in between our object and our switch. Our target is going to be a brand new int variable. We can leave it at the default of 0 because this is immediately going to get set anyway. And we'll plug our index for the switch into that as well. Now what are we going to set this to for the value? We're going to set it to the result of this problem. Now let's walk through it real quick. The very first time the int counter is called, A is going to be less than B, so it's just going to walk right down this chain. So we're going to grab a bot, store them in the variable, then immediately we're going to set this variable to a value of whatever is here by default, which is 2. So this will start off being 2. We get to the switch, which now chooses link 2 because that's what we fed it, which means we're going to have the bot walk to its destination location. So we set our destination, call on move bot, we run to the location of our destination. We wait a moment. We wrap back around. Now it's going to repeat this for all of the other bots. When it's finished, it'll come back around. It'll see that we've gone greater than our total number of bots. It'll reset this to -1. It's going to divide 2 by 2 and get a value of 1. It'll store 1 inside this number. Then it'll loop back around. Now we start to move our bots again. So we grab a bot, we stick it inside the variable. Now we get to here. However, this number has been switched back to 1. So we set the value here to 1 as well, which means now we're listening to link 1, so now we're going to run back to the origin. This will repeat once for all of our bots until we wrap back around and this becomes 2 again. So we're going to start off running to our destination, then we'll run to the origin, then we'll run to the destination, and so on indefinitely. All we have to do now is take the result from our create boss and plug this in to fire up our sequence. Now let's put all of this into a nice comment box. We'll go ahead and move it up just a little bit. I'll tap C. And let's call this bot patrol behavior. And let's give this a test. Now I'm going to cheat just a little bit. I'm going to hit tab and type in ghost. So now this is going to make the camera do some pretty cool things, but we're just going to slide over here. And then I'll type ghost again. Actually, I think it's walk, isn't it? There we go. And we switch back to first-person mode, which is okay, because the point is that our bot is patrolling, which is exactly what we want. And this bot is obviously patrolling as well. Okay, so cheating kind of bit me on that one. But we can try it again. And this time what I'll do is I'll fly up in the air, and this is really cool anyway. Check this out. So if we ghost, well, you know, we're designers, we're debugging, we can cheat. So if we fly up here to the center of the building, we can see all of our bots are patrolling nicely, including the boss. They're all running back and forth. But just kind of a cool thing, if you fly too high, then suddenly they can see you and they'll all start opening fire. So watch out for that. Okay, so our bot behavior is complete. We are ready to move away from our enemies that we're setting up for our game, which is going to wrap up this lesson. Be sure to save your level, and then we will continue with our final set of traps before the game itself is wrapped up.